$24,795.
Except that number is completely misleading. There's a ton of hidden costs and I have a really long history with this car. So let's take it for a spin real quick and I'll explain everything.
So back when I got this car in 2017, I really didn't know anything about modifying cars. In fact, I was so ready to start dropping money on it that most of my inexperience simply turned into loads of wasted money. Alright, we're going to get into the details of how much all of that costs here in a minute, but first I need to explain the purpose of sharing all of this with you. I have, over the years, spent literal tens of thousands of dollars on this and other cars, all that is literally pointless purchases today, all things considered. The goal of cyberunn is to be able to monetize our passion for creative expression through cars and our designs as an art form. YouTube allows us to have this opportunity, however, not if we waste thousands on pointless purchases like I just did over the past few years. For the Miata specifically, we need to start back in 2017.
So the car itself, or actually the chassis, if you will, was only $3,000 and I bought it on January 1st, 2017.
And back then I wasn't totally in love with the Miata, but after seeing the Rocket Bunny renders, I was totally sold. And turns out the car actually had tons of issues. After removing a lot of the rice car mods, like these front teeth, I found that the frame was damaged, and pretty badly too. And this sucked because now my dream build was going to start costing a lot of money. And shortly after I was actually working on the interior, I nudged the head unit while the battery was plugged in, and the entire thing caught fire due to the sketchy wiring that the previous owners had so graciously left for me. And by April of 2017, the car had the Rocket Bunny kit mounted, and I was a good $3,000 in mods and maintenance into the build, only for it to look like this. But this wasn't to say that I didn't have good intentions. I've always been a designer, I just didn't have any money to spend, as I was getting paid minimum wage at my job and I was going to marry Emily that same year. So things were tight, but I was determined. The early summer came around and I dropped a few thousand on a road trip with my brother. We went junkyarding and went on a massive buying spree. We actually bought a hardtop and brought home an entire minivan full of new parts. And if you consider today, most of that was just completely wasted money that I didn't need in the long run.
Miata graveyard.
During that same summer, I came back and married Emily, only to be fired from the minimum wage job when I got back from the honeymoon. That was a great welcome back party, right? And so by the end of 2017, the car was on hold to say the least. I had no job, no inspiration, and I was heading into a dark pit of depression. So if you've spent any time here on the Cyberunn channel, I'm sure you know that I have a sweet spot for the cyberpunk genre. I've always loved futurism, but the film Blade Runner really pulled me in and gave me inspiration to keep building the Miata. So I got hired onto a new job as a lead designer and was finally making enough to continue the Miata build. While working here, I actually learned how to wrap cars and even got to design all of the stickers that went onto the car. Okay, so things seem to be looking up, and I was probably spending around $15,000 total on the car at this point. That's not even having touched the engine yet. Although, February 13th, 2019, I casually threw the Miata right off the freeway, damaged a lot of stuff, the frame was even more tweaked, and the body kit was completely destroyed, and the repairs were going to cost thousands. So do you remember how I said I wasted lots of money? Here is when I really started trying things out. I was building homebrew front splitters and aero parts, building custom front aero bumpers, although that did cause the car to overheat on a back road on the first test drive, but I was basically just simply wasting money, more and more and more money. I would say I was at least $20,000 into the project, and it still just sat there looking like garbage.
So I guess the point is that no matter what car you build and what type of build it's going to be, there's always differences in everyone's journey. And more importantly, there's always going to be hidden and unexpected costs.
So Emily convinced me not to worry too much about the aesthetic and just go ahead and send it anyway. And then in the summer of 2020, the vinyl wrap started to burn into the paint just because where I live, it's California, super hot, super sunny all the time.
Middle of the day, 100 and some odd degrees. We're out here working on cars, man.
So at this point, it was time for a complete rebuild. I created a few digital renders, did some 3D modeling, concept art, and finally came up with the design. So I bought new fenders, a fresh new body kit, non-cracked front windshield, loads of money was dropped into this stupid car again. Whew, deep breath. Okay, now that we're all caught up on the history of the car, you can really see just how much it cost me and my personal journey in this build.
So because my history of cost on this build is so muddy, we're only going to account for what you see on the car right now, so you have an idea of what it would cost to take it from stock to something like this. All right, rapid fire time, let's go. Okay, this is where we start to get into a little bit of a gray area, but this is hypotheticals and it's really fun to kind of think about. If I were to have a client bring me this idea and create this, it would probably be about a $10,000 design from start to finish, the entire project completed. Now, if we're talking about labor, I mean, I can't even fathom the amount of hours that I've put into this car. 10 hours on the body kit, 20 hours for the entire interior. To wrap the car, say another 12 hours maybe, and then add, let's just say a safe 10 hours for just like cutting the hood vents, mounting the wheel fitment. Moderately speaking, that's probably around 52 hours, say $100. That was easy math. 5,200 bucks on just labor. Now, if you actually took this to a shop, I'm sure it would cost more, but let's just be moderate here and say $10,000 for the design, $5,200 for the labor to actually build a car like this. So you're basically looking at $15,200 in saved cost, hypothetically, for building this car because we designed and built it ourselves.
There is something that I didn't tell you. Over the past few years while building this car, I've gone through a lot personally speaking. I know that this is really cliche, but this car helped me through all of that. On the outside, most people have always seen me as just some quiet kid building a rice mobile, but in reality, I was totally in another universe just figuring things out within myself. This is my way of expressing my own personality through design and complete creative expression. I actually learned a lot during this time and even went as far as starting a business from the creative side of cyberunn, and all of those creative designs are actually fueling a second income at the moment. So look at it this way, by spending and wasting all of that money, I was able to carve out a new career that I absolutely love. I get to design and build cars, all from ideas that I come up with. And doing all of this actually got me through a lot of struggles personally.
But you know what? Even if it cost $100,000, I'd do it again.